so we don't spell it. We saw no reason, unlike our Irish cousins across the sea, to add an extra letter and overcomplicate it. All right, so we keep it simple. W-H-I-S-K-Y. Macallan is a single malt whiskey from Scotland. The definition of a single malt is a whiskey from a single distillery made purely from malted barley. Okay, so Macallan, all the whiskey here was created on site at Macallan, obviously, and then therefore we call it Macallan single malt. Were we to take Macallan and our sister distillery Highland Park and add that together, that would be the starting point of going on to make a blended whiskey like famous Straths. Other blends that you'll be aware of, things like Johnny Walker, Shivers, Dewars, okay. That's basically where you take a number of different single malts, you blend them together, you add that blend of single malts to a base of grain whiskey. Grain whiskey is made in a much more commercial, industrial type of process, similar in concept of vodka, continuous distillation, etc. So single malts are arguably the purest of the pure whiskies. It's not to say that single malts are always better than blends, okay, that's a pretty snobbish view that some people will say. What I will say is if you want to sort of drink as much whiskey as you can is the best way to figure out which are the best whiskies. Because what I like and what you like might be different. What I will say is Macallan is one of the finest whiskies in Scotland, particularly on the AT, which is what we're going to work our way up to. The other thing, just to tell you very simply, one of the key things for making a whiskey is that you basically start off by making beer. Okay? You take barley, you take water, you take yeast, you create a beer-like liquid of about 6 to 8% alcohol, and then you distill it. Once you've distilled that beer-like liquid, okay, you take that spirit and you put it into an oak cask, and you leave it in the oak cask for either 15 years or 18 years. And the key thing for Macallan, which may well be very different from some of the single malts you've had or you've brought to the Whiskey Friday, is that for most of our whiskies, the traditional style of Macallan, we're using Spanish oak sherry casks. Okay? And those are casks that were previously made sherry in Spain. We then ship them up to Scotland, fill them with the spirit. 12 years later, 18 years later, you get this much sort of darker, richer style of whiskey. Most distilleries in Scotland predominantly use American oak bourbon barrels. Okay? Those who previously made bourbon, obviously over here in America, they then get shipped to Scotland, filled with the spirit. And what you do with that is you end up with a little bit of a lighter spirit. The American oak doesn't give as much kind of richer flavors or as much colour to this. So today what we've got from Macallan, our traditional style, just using Spanish oak sherry casks. We've also got a relatively new style called fine oak, which is the first whiskey you're trying, and that uses both. Okay? So some whiskey that you've currently got in the glass sat in sherry casks for 15 years, some whiskey sat in bourbon barrels for 15 years, and then the whiskey maker brought those two styles together. And just so you know, it's still a single malt, even though we're using two different types of whiskey, because it's all happening at the same single distillery. Okay, so that's one there. Other than that, please just, this is about sipping whiskey. It's about, as I said earlier, if you want to take it back to your desk, come back, get a refill, don't interact with me at all, I don't blame you, okay? If you want to stay here, talk about whiskey, ask questions, compare it with other whiskies that you may have drunk, say, you know, how does this compare to a Glenlivet or, you know, what else can we talk about? An Islay whiskey, a Lafroig, an Ardbeg, whatever. You know, that's what we're here to do for the next hour. So. And I think this, the final thing is don't be afraid of adding water to whiskey. Okay? If you don't like it when you add the water in, give it to me, I'll drink it, you can take a fresh one, we'll start the process again. Alright? So adding water, particularly at this time of year, I think you've probably all seen it, how it softens the whiskey, especially if it's a little chilled water. Okay, that may be not the purest reason for doing things. The purists would probably say the water has to be room temperature. Alright? The purists would also be the guys that would be showing up in a kilt in a very hot and humid New York, right? They'd be dripping with sweat, their ginger red beards, etc. You know, it wouldn't be a pretty sight. So, hence I've gone for like a technical fabric polo shirt that says Macallan. Same thing applies to the whiskey, all right? You can chill the water, you can stick a bottle of whiskey in the freezer if you want. You can use big round ice cubes, whatever you want. Okay. That's pretty much that. I think there are some people who are either trying to get out of the office to start their Friday, or they're playing I need it. Perfect, okay.
So what do these guys have?
Everyone's got 15. I'm going to recommend everyone starts with a little glass of the Fine Oak 15. Take a good sip of it neat. And then come in and take a good sip of it neat. Then add a little bit of water. See what happens when you add the water to the whiskey.
So now you said these were the American bourbon?
Both. Two types. Whiskey that sat in bourbon and whiskey. Basically a 15-year-old version of this combined with a 15-year-old whiskey matured in bourbon barrels.
Okay.
Hence why we call it the Fine Oak series. It's a little bit different. So, anyone else need a whiskey? I think we're all good.
All right. I'm going to graduate
in like 45 minutes or less.
We'll be here.
Yes. Yes.
I don't know if the whiskey will be here, but we'll be here.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, we will.